So, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but I will say that if the reporting is accurate, this might be the best news we've gotten yet from the Biden administration. The Associated Press said, and this is a few days back now, Biden is halting U.S. support for Saudi Arabia's offensive in Yemen, blamed for humanitarian crisis. Okay, so there's a number of ways to look at this, and up front, I'm going to say we're going to proceed with caution. Now, the reason I say we're going to proceed with caution is because every other time we've gotten a headline that's an overwhelmingly positive headline, when you dig a little deeper, it turns out there were some tricks involved and there were some sleights of hand, and so you have to keep your wits about you, and you have to evaluate these things on a case-by-case basis and look at all the evidence. So in the case of private prisons, remember when all the headlines were like, Biden is banning private prisons? It was something to that effect. There were a lot of headlines that were like overreaching, and then when you read the specifics, it turns out it's only for like the Justice Department, and that makes up a total of 14,000 prisoners, and there's over 100,000 prisoners in private prisons, and he could have ended private prisons for ICE detention centers as well, and he didn't, even though 67% of the ICE detention centers are private prisons. So he only got rid of like a small percentage of the private prisons and is not re-upping their contract, but he got full credit in the media from the headlines as if he was like eliminating all private prisons. So that's why I say we need to proceed with caution, because you always realize it's not as good as it initially appears. The other thing was the Buy America executive order. Now, Trump totally flopped on that and backtracked, and he went from saying he's going to sign a Buy America executive order to doing a stupid symbolic Buy America week, which is non-substantive at all. Like, there's no there for that. What Biden did is Biden got all the headlines of he signed his Buy America executive order, but again, you read the specifics, and it turns out it's not fully Buy America. The idea behind it, just so everybody knows, the ideal answer would be for the federal government to only buy products that are made in America. And the reason why that would be great is because it would increase manufacturing in this country, and it would lead to high-paying jobs in this country, and it would stimulate our economy here. And the way it worked in the past is we could buy from, the federal government can buy not just from America, but our allies too. And so we would be helping their economies and not necessarily spurring manufacturing in this country. So what Biden did is he just changed the rules a little bit to make it so that the federal government will buy more American products. But there's loopholes. And, the loopholes are like, hey, maybe it only has to be assembled in America, or we buy American up to a certain price threshold, and he increases the price threshold a little bit. So when you read the specifics of that executive order, it was like, okay, it's a step in the right direction, but it's a baby step, and he's not signing the actual executive order that we all want. Okay, so now we come full circle, and we're going to talk about what's happening in Yemen. So Saudi Arabia is one of our top allies. We've been arming them, we've been funding them, and there's been periods on and off intermittently where we actually help them with the coordinates of their bombing campaign. There's a genocide happening in Yemen. People are starving. The goods that they need in that country are not getting in. There's a shortage of medicine. It is a catastrophe, and it's a totally preventable catastrophe. And it all goes back to the Houthis, the Shia Houthis, basically taking over Yemen from a previous Sunni government. And so Saudi Arabia is trying to get rid of the Houthis and have their own puppet government in charge there, effectively. And so so many people have died as a result of this. So is it possible Biden saying, yes, we're totally going to back out of our support for Saudi Arabia in the war on Yemen? It's possible. It's possible. My fear is this amounts to, we're no longer going to, for example, help them with their coordinates of their bombing campaign. And they'll probably still funnel them weapons. See, I don't know what you guys think, but in my opinion, to actually halt support for this, you would need to cut off the weapons going to Saudi Arabia. Is he planning on doing that? Honestly, I doubt it. We don't know yet, but I doubt it. I hope so, and if that is the case, full credit to Joe Biden. Full credit. But, again, the devil's in the details, and so far, we don't have the details. So, best case scenario, we're no longer helping them with their bombing campaign. We're no longer giving them weapons. And also, we would sanction them and try to, force them to stop committing a genocide. So that would be a best case scenario. What is not a good scenario, and what is probably more likely, to be honest, is this just means we're not going to be hands-on in helping them, but we're still going to give them weapons. And, of course, we're not going to punish them or crack down on them or sanction them or try through diplomatic means to get them to stop doing what they're doing. So, again, I'll say I'm cautiously optimistic because at the very least he's going to inch us in the right direction. But when it comes to matters of life and death and genocide and non-genocide, I don't just want to inch us in the right direction. I think the proper policy, of course, would be to stop helping them with their bombing campaign, cut off all the weapons immediately. And I would do that to every human rights violator across the world. I would stop funding any dictatorial regime, stop, giving weapons to Israel. That's what you really should do if you actually cared about human rights and democracy, like we say we do. So what should happen is stop helping them with their bombing campaign, cut off the weapons, and then try to exert pressure on them to actually stop what they're doing. Because anybody who's followed what's happened in Yemen closely knows it's as bad as it gets, man. And this is a humanitarian disaster that's not talked about in Western circles nearly as much because our allies are carrying it out. So since it's an ally carrying it out, and we've even helped with that, where civilians would be killed and there would be, the weapons were clearly made in the USA and it says it on them, on the exploded bombs. But this is the direction that we have to go in if we want to be serious about this. Western media is not covering this in the same way that they cover, for example, Syria. Syria's a disaster, of course, but that's covered more as a hair on fire, and we need to act immediately. Why? Because the Syrian government is our enemy and not our ally. The Saudi Arabians are our allies, so when they effectively are doing genocide in Yemen, you don't get the same hair on fire coverage and, breathless, we must do something feel and vibe from the media and from power centers. So I hope that he's going to go all the way here. I don't know if he is. I don't think he is. I'd welcome any step in the right direction, but really, we shouldn't even have to question this. You know what I mean? There shouldn't even be, hey, maybe this is just as Weasley as the private prison things or the Buy America thing. We shouldn't be in this position. It should be a given. It should be a guarantee. But having said all that, if he indeed stops arming them, stops helping them, then yay Biden. Go Biden. I want to give him credit. I'm fucking rooting for him, I'm rooting for him. You think I want him to stay in Afghanistan, which we learned he's probably going to do? No. I want to come out here and give him credit and say he's getting us out of there. You think I wanted to go after him over the Iran deal? No. I hoped that he would follow through with his campaign promise and jump right back in that deal on day one. He didn't do it. He's saying to them, you get back in, you stop enriching uranium, and then we'll get back. But we pulled out of the deal. Why would they do that? We've proven that our deals aren't worth the paper they're written on, and now you're going to make demands? So I want him to do the right thing. But we just don't know. And when we get more details, obviously we'll talk about it. I'm rooting for him. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm also realistic about it, and I think the jury's out. So, genocide in Yemen, at the very least, the United States will not be actively facilitating it, which is damning with faint praise and cold comfort.